As I was saying, I keep telling a lot of people this. Up until 2nd of June, we were in a state called Andhra Pradesh. Now we're in a state called Telangana. But in fact, I keep telling a lot of people this, that we are in a state of confusion, we are in a state of transition, we are in a state of flux really at this point in time. Because a lot of us, a lot of people who are not really used or not really akin to the idea of geographical boundaries being redrawn, etc. I think are still in a state of getting used to. A lot of people still call AP and then they look at each other and say, which AP are we talking about, the earlier one or now, that's the sort of confusion. So 100 plus schools in all, ICSE. And in fact, as a student of ICSE, I was very proud. I used to argue, I used to be very, very competitive with my peers from CBSE and SSC, because I remember I graduated in 91. I graduated as in I passed my ICSE in 91, right? So at that point in time, I used to have these really, really fierce arguments with all my friends and colleagues saying, how good ICSE was, and I don't know if all the test papers are still around. I mugged up all the OP Sinhal test papers back then. I don't know if they're still around, but lots of them. Lots of anecdotes I can share with you on ICSE and the medium as the medium of instruction, and how we used to feel privileged and proud to actually have been through that course. So I'm very, very happy to be a part of this meeting here. And secondly, as I said, we're definitely going through a state of transition, but nevertheless, guarantee you one thing, that especially education is a big focus for the new government, because we all understand, we all know, because I've just, as Madhvi had just mentioned, today the reason that, the reason and the idea of anyone from India, anyone from Hyderabad actually being able to transcend all the geographical boundaries, reach out to any part of the world, go anywhere in the world and actually be able to work, challenge, and actually study and compete with the rest of the world. I think the confidence essentially comes from education. And the sort of education I got, my father keeps telling this to a lot of people, the difference really being, with a kid from an ordinary background versus a kid who has a privileged background of getting a privileged education. I think that really what makes the difference if you look at it over a period of time. In fact, I keep telling a lot of people this. When I was actually studying in grammar school, I had a friend, I would not want to name him now. I had a friend who we went to school with for about 4 years in grammar. Then eventually we both ended up in the same college in +2. Eventually we also ended up in the same college in degree, the Nizam College. And when we were in Nizam College, my father was a minister. He was then anointed as a minister, he was appointed as a minister. And one fine day, a friend of mine that I had bonded with all along for about 10-15 years, he walked up to me. He said, my sister has applied for a job, and this is in your father's department. If he puts in a good word, she'll be elected and she'll get a job. So obviously as a friend, and I obviously knew his sister, so I thought the least I could do was just go and ask my father, who was a minister then. So I walked up to my father, gave him the details, and I said, this is my friend's sister. I think if you put in a word, she's going to get a job. He called his personal assistant in turn and he said, why don't you take a look at it, tell me if this is feasible. This personal assistant came back to me in about half an hour. He said, sir, do you know which community, which caste your friend hails from? I had no clue. I said, I've been with him, I've been a friend of his for the last 15 years, but I never really had the chance or opportunity or the gumption or the need to actually ask what his community is, what his caste is. Never did really occur to me. So I just said, I don't know. I don't know how many of you believe this or not, but I said, I just don't know. He was surprised, but he told me that these posts are reserved for scheduled caste. This is a scheduled caste backlog post. He said, why don't you check with your friend if he's actually from that community? So I called up my friend. I asked him. I never really had to ask you this, but now that you asked me for a favor, apparently this is the problem. He said, yes, I'm actually from the scheduled community, scheduled caste. The point I'm trying to make is the sort of education that we offer, the sort of education that especially is offered in the ICSE schools and in Hyderabad. I think what ends up happening is all the kids, all the students and all the peers get along so well. Once you start sharing your, a table, a classroom, the sort of environment that there is in wonderful schools such as Gitanjali or Grammar or elsewhere, all the ICSE schools, what ends up happening is we as politicians keep talking about a caste-less society, a caste-free society. But I think the best leveler, the best level playing field creator is the education and is the school environment. I mean, I can only talk from my experience. I can tell you proudly that I've never ever in my life I've had the need or have had the situation where the school had actually one of the students report their caste, community, etc., etc. That's exactly what we're trying to replicate in the new Telangana government. In fact, our Honorable Chief Minister has been talking about a revolutionary education model wherein he would want all the underprivileged children, irrespective of what caste, what community they belong to be put in one single model of education. He wants to ensure that all the below poverty line families, cutting across different castes, communities, religions, etc., to be brought and put in under one umbrella, and that education should be on par with the education that is offered in a private school, be it ICSE or be it CBSE. The reason why I'm saying this is because if you think about it, ultimately once, as I said, as politicians, day in, day out, we talk about how the world should be one, how we all should have our children grow up together, have quality education, etc., etc. But again, on the other hand, I end up as an MLA going to my constituency, inaugurating a BC hostel, inaugurating a SC hostel, inaugurating a ST hostel, a girls hostel, a boys hostel, etc., etc. On the one hand, we talk about unity. On the other hand, we talk about we keep segregating them. That is something that we can do away with. That is something that really can be done away by the government. Therefore, what we are looking at is we are looking at creating model schools. Because governments in the past, I don't want to really blame any one of them in particular, but governments in the past have chosen shortcuts. When they could not improve, when they could not beef up the public education system, they chose actually a shortcut and they said, I will offer you fees reimbursement. Go and study in a private school or private college. Whatever expenses your parents have to bear, I'll bear that. And that ultimately resulted in the public education system being almost decimated. Today, the people of this state, the people of this country do not have a great deal of respect, a great deal of confidence in the public systems, be it public education system or be it public healthcare system as an example. When the governments could not actually come up and improve upon the public healthcare system, what have they done? They've chosen a shortcut. They said, I'll provide you Arogyasri. If your neighbor who's making or who's above poverty line, if he is able to afford treatment in Apollo or a CARE or one of these big corporate hospitals, I'll do the same thing for you. I'll foot your bill and I'll send you and your family members to one of these hospitals. So these sort of shortcuts that have been adopted in the past have to be done away with. Because in the past, when the governments were only thinking about the next election and how to get elected in the next election, they chose all these shortcuts. They said Arogyasri for, when they could not improve the public healthcare system, they said Arogyasri. When they could not improve the public education system, they said fees reimbursement, we'll reimburse everything. That is something that we want to do away with because as I said, we are a new state, we want to make a new beginning. And I think the new beginning, especially if you think about it, have to be made on two key fronts, and one is health, another is education. As long as we are able to take care of these two aspects as a state, I think our children in the future will be safe, will be proud, will be definitely healthier, with healthier minds when you offer them quality education. So our government is extremely focused. In fact, as part of our election manifesto, we've promised that we will be providing mandatory education, free education from KG until PG. And from next year, we'll definitely be kicking that off. And when I say free education, I don't mean free education in the current setup. We are looking at the possibility of setting up a model presidential schools allow Hyderabad public school, of that standard in the rural setting, in the rural areas, and bringing in all the kids under BPL who are below the poverty line under one roof, provide them quality accommodation, provide them everything from books to uniforms to food to everything free of cost, completely borne by the government, and do away with all of these other hostels, other parallel running outfits such as the BC hostels, SC hostels, which we used to segregate. We are trying to bring everybody under one roof, trying to create a system which actually offers quality education as well. But the biggest challenge, obviously, as you all would understand, as principals and teachers, is the sort of training that is required for the teachers. Who will teach the teachers or who will tutor the tutors? I think that's the biggest challenge. And that's where my department sort of comes in. Information technology is what I head. I also head Panchayat Raj. So what we're looking at is the possibility of really linking up all the government schools, government colleges, and all the villages through the National Optic Fiber Network model that the Union government has recently launched. We want to provide broadband connectivity to every single village and every single habitation in Telangana, which is about 10,000 villages if you take account of that. In fact, I was in a meeting recently in Delhi where the Honorable Union Minister for Information Technology and Telecommunications was talking about NOFN and how NOFN is the National Optical Fiber Network, and how the Union government is extremely keen on connecting all these villages through broadband. In fact, we are doing two things on that front. One, we are looking at the possibility of providing citizen services right at the doorstep of a village Gram Panchayat, the local government. And secondly, we are also looking at the possibility of offering e-learning, e-education. So, as you all would understand, as you all would know, there is a dearth of quality teachers in the current system. So obviously, on the one hand, while we have to make do with what we have, at the same time, we also have to create centers of excellence. We also have to create centers of innovation, which will actually create more and more better informed, more learned teachers who can impart better education to the children as well. And obviously, there are some issues within the government education system as well as far as the teaching goes. So that is something that we are also focused on. That is something we are also working on, because if we have to have good quality of teaching, then our teachers will also have to be trained. Our teachers will also have to be taught. When I say teachers, I mean the teachers in the government education system right now. So that is something that we are also working on. So e-learning combined with quality teachers and mandatory free education that I just talked about, I think these are all the steps that we are taking as part of our education initiative, which is very, very close to our Chief Minister's heart. He is somebody who believes that education is a true leveler, and I'm very, very confident that with the Corporate Social Responsibility Act, the Companies Act of 2013 being also passed, I'm confident that some of your schools, some of your institutes could also step up, could also actually lend a helping hand to the government, especially with the teaching aspect. You can come forward and associate with the government. You can work with us, maybe adopt a few schools, impart the same educational standards. See, today as I'm speaking here as a proud student of the grammar school, I'm sure if you actually offer a helping hand to bring up the standards in all these government schools as well as part of this corporate social responsibility, I think that will be a wonderful thing. I think that will really create a wonderful society. As I said, we are a new state. We have to make a new beginning. And in this new beginning and in this new process, in this journey that we have to all travel together, I request you all also to join hands. As that's the reason why I was asking how many schools there are in Telangana. If there are 100 schools, I'm sure each of you can adopt at least one, or maybe both two schools can adopt one or something. That way you can have some of your teachers actually come, reach out, work with us, help us also bring up our standards in public education system, so that going forward, because you can't think about this as a short-term thing. And as a minister, as an elected representative, I'm telling you one thing. This Chief Minister is not somebody who's worried about losing the next election. He's more focused on the long-term results. He's more focused on the long-term good for the state that we fought so hard to achieve. So therefore, all in all, without preaching too much, I can tell you one thing for sure, that this government is extremely focused. This government is extremely pleased and extremely proud to actually be focused on education, especially education in the government sector. Therefore, I request you all to come forward, extend a helping hand, and wherever you require our help. I know there are some challenges. The Right to Education Act is a challenge. There are a lot of people talking about it, a lot of people reaching out to us as well. I commit to you on this forum that I will actually ensure that, while you didn't ask me, I will ensure that there will be a meeting. I'll schedule a meeting with some of the schools and your association, maybe with the government, with the education minister. You can work out a middle ground. I'm sure we have to get there. As I said, while we are focused on the fact that the government actually has to beef up public education system, simultaneously with Right to Education coming in, I think there is a corporate social responsibility angle as well, which is a good thing. But then there has to be a transition that has to happen over a period of time. So I will ensure that there will be ensure a meeting between the association and the education minister, so that you can actually find a way out. But on the whole, I am confident that ICSE schools don't really need the government's help as much as others would. But nevertheless, if there's anything I can do, more than happy to. I understand your sentiments, I understand your sympathies, I understand your feelings toward the government. Guarantee you one thing, we will not definitely poke our nose in areas where it doesn't belong. Definitely we'll try to help you all. In fact, if there are problems, we'll step in and help out. And if you're doing really well, why fix something that isn't broken? So, wonderful initiative. Congratulations to all of you and thank you very much.